Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Welcome to the Speaking of Wealth show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, where we discuss profit strategies for speakers, publishers, authors, consultants, coaches, info marketers, and just go over a whole bunch of exciting things that you can use to increase your business, to make your business more successful and more passive and more automated and more scalable. So we will be back with a great interview. Be sure to visit us at speakingofwealth.com. You can take advantage of our blog, subscribe to the RSS feed, and many other resources for free at speakingofwealth.com. And we will be back with a great interview for you in less than 60 seconds.
Want to know what you've missed in the Creating Wealth series? Well, here's your opportunity with Jason's 5-book set. That's shows 1 through 100 through digital download. You save $288 by getting this 5-book set. Learn all of the advanced strategies for wealth creation. For more details, go to jasonhartman.com.
Hey, it's my pleasure to welcome Adam Dince to the show. He's the head of organic search, or SEO, at Deluxe Corporation, and he is an expert in SEO and content strategy. And it's a pleasure to have him here, coming to us from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Adam, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm glad to be a part of the show today.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. So talk to us about some of the big mistakes you see people making out there, entrepreneurs, infopreneurs, consultants, speakers, in their SEO strategy and their content strategy.
One of the most interesting things that I've noticed and sort of switch over the years is SEO seems to have moved more towards social media, heavy social media, and if you write great content, you're going to do great things. And that seems to sort of be the mantra that you hear whether you go to conferences or the blog posts that you're reading. And for someone who's been doing it a long time, who's in the nitty-gritty of the data all day long, I can tell you that's a huge misperception, and it really does lead down a rabbit hole that's hard to get out of. And I can kind of go into detail why. When I speak to businesses and small businesses, enterprise-sized businesses, I always ask them the question: if you write amazing content, but so do 100 other sites that are similar to yours, who's going to win? Who's going to get the most? Who's going to get the best rankings? Who's going to drive the most traffic from search engines? How does Google and Bing figure that out? Google's blocked from Facebook, has a difficult time seeing Facebook data. Twitter shut off its API. So how do you win? Is it just a given that if you create the right content and you're sharing it in social networks that you're going to be a winner? And I think that's the biggest mistake that I see happening these days is there's, and I don't know if it's because more social media folks have gotten into SEO or more content people have gotten into SEO, but it really hasn't changed that much from its inception of search engine optimization really being about optimizing websites and content for search engines.
Okay, well then what is it about? I admit and agree with you that the search engines can't tell the difference in terms of the quality of content. I mean, they've tried to by keyword richness and keyword stuffing algorithms and things like this. But what is working then?
Sure. So take a step back. I'm not saying that quality content doesn't matter. It's very important. And
I guess it matters once someone is actually reading it.
Yes.
We could agree on that, right? But
Thank you.
But if they don't get there to read it, it doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't, and I used to give this analogy of years ago I bought a GPS system back in the day where they would send you the CDs along with it, that you just upload the data from the CDs to your GPS.
Yeah, and every year you had to buy a new CD with the new data for the new roads and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or heaven forbid you you try to get somewhere between that year gap, right? And so there's a new community that's been built, but it's not in your GPS system. How do you find where you're going? So SEO is very similar to that. And so you brought up a really good point. One, you've got to build a website that is completely accessible to search engines, meaning search engines can get to every piece of content that you have, that your code isn't clunky on the site, meaning search engines don't have to navigate through a lot of ugly code to get to your content, that you don't have too much content built in your images, that everything, there's a lot of text on the page, that you're doing your keyword research and you're optimizing that content for the keywords, not stuffing, but optimizing your content for that. And also, Google, Bing, and Yahoo introduced this thing a couple of years ago called Schema Markup Language, which is an enhancement to HTML that helps search engines better understand the content of your page. So all that is really important. Links are still really important to your site. It doesn't matter what you might hear, links don't matter anymore. It sure does.
Hey, before let me just interrupt you for a second,
sure,
Adam.
Please.
Before you jump into links, I want to just talk to you about the clunky code issue and having your website optimized for the search engine to get through and see the content. I mean, the vast majority of the internet is WordPress. That's the most popular thing, obviously. And I remember Thesis bragging, the Thesis theme, bragging about how they were more search engine friendly. Is this still true? Are there certain themes in the WordPress world that you'd advise people use to make sure the search engines like them better?
Thesis is a pretty good template or theme for sure. I would say there are a lot of CMSs out there in general that claim to be the best technical SEO-friendly platform or theme. So the things that you want to look for in terms of a theme is if you're savvy enough and you can understand this or you're working with a web developer, make sure that there's not a lot of excess JavaScript in the code. So you don't want to see a lot of on-page in-code JavaScript. You don't want to see a lot of on-page or inline cascading styles. You really want to look for a theme essentially that's more content than code, or allows you to have more content than code. And so I think for the most part, most WordPress themes are pretty friendly. I've seen a lot worse in terms of out of the box like Drupal and some other various software that's just not at all SEO friendly out of the box. But WordPress in general tends to be pretty straightforward. Keep that in mind that whatever theme you're going with, the more bells and whistles that you have on it, so if it's got moving and flying things, it's more likely to have extra code that you're not going to want on there. So it's not hard to fix that stuff if you've got a web developer you're working with that can sort of take that on-page code and call it onto the page from external files.
Okay, good. So moving on to links then.
Sure. So links are really the formula for SEO hasn't changed that much. It's been content plus links equals rankings, right? And hopefully rankings then equals clicks and visits to the site and conversions and sales or leads.
And when you say links, you mean links to your site, right?
Right. So inbound links from third-party sites are extremely important. So the way it works essentially is links are kind of a vote of trust in your favor, almost like being back in high school. So if you sat with the popular kids back in high school, you were considered popular. You sort of inherited that popularity. Where if you sat at the lunch table by yourself, you were kind of the outcast. No one wanted anything to do with you. The same thing goes with search engines. The more authoritative, popular, relevant sites that link to your site, the more that search engines go, oh, okay, so this site's pretty trusted in the community, so Google's saying, I'm willing to return this at the top of search results because other websites have vouched for it. And so so that's where we talked about earlier, if you and 100 other websites all have amazing content, and Google's trying to figure out how to rank them in order, it's really going to be the links that make that big difference at the end of the day. And so you mentioned earlier about good content, and Google's getting a lot better at understanding good content with their Panda algorithm update or filter that they released a couple years ago. It's been getting better and better at understanding user experience and how easy is it to use, how hard is it to find things, are there too many ads all over the place? And so that's also a factor in it as well. So if you're creating good content, you're creating a solid user experience, meaning you're keeping your users in mind when you're building it, and you're attracting links. You're getting links from the right sites, and you're not buying them. You're not artificially inflating your links. You're going to do well in organic search.
How does Google know if you're buying them or if the links are from the right sites? I mean, certainly links from the popular sites they can understand because they know where the traffic is going. But how do they know if the site is a spammy site or a truly related site? I remember years ago we hired an SEO company to do some SEO work for us, and we found links to our sites on all sorts of sort of marginal seeming websites. And we fired them when we found this because we thought it was a black hat or at least gray hat, and we thought it would get us downgraded. But I mean, how does Google know if you link to my site and your site doesn't have the best Alexa rating in the world? It's not Wikipedia. It's not a high authority site necessarily. It's just an individual site, but it's very relevant maybe. I mean, how do they know? I can't imagine how the computer could know, how the software could tell.
Yeah, their algorithms are pretty smart, and one of the things that Google looks at is context, right? So if there's a website that's out there and it's got articles about everything you can imagine, how to make pizza, how to fix a tire, and it just looks like a content farm and there are links going out, Google's going to say, wait a minute, why in the world does this site exist? Why is it here?
Okay, but let me just take issue with that for a moment, and we don't need to belabor this. It's just a thought.
This is a
yeah. But the website Lifehacker, right? Or any big blog site, whether it be Huffington Post or Gawker, or they do a total variety of subjects, Business Insider, there's all kinds of weird subjects. They cover everything,
Sure.
And I mean, CNN or Fox covers sports, and I don't know.
Sure. I mean, Google doesn't just look at the variety of topics. It looks at sort of the purpose of the website. So a site like Lifehacker, even an eHow. In fact, eHow got in trouble a few years ago, though. But Google looks first to see, okay, if there's a variety of content, is there a purpose for a variety of this content? So is it a Lifehacker type site, or is it just a website out there creating content just to get found to be out there and to draw links? And so once Google finds sites and it investigates, because it does investigate these issues, and they look into it, they go through and determine whether or not it's a quality site. Another way they go about doing it is they say, we've kind of been suspecting that payday loans, sites that have links to their sites that say payday loans in the link text, are doing something unnatural. We've been seeing some activity. It doesn't look normal. So what it'll do is it'll go out through its massive index or database and look for all the links that point out that have payday loan type terms in the link text. And it'll go out and it'll try and find those sites, and then it's going to go look at those sites and say, oh, this doesn't look kosher. Oh, they've got to be selling links. This doesn't look natural. The link text is too perfect. We know that in a natural sort of, I guess you'd call it and I'm not thinking of the right word here, but when distribution, that you wouldn't have 100% perfect anchor text. You'd have some anchor text that said the website name, or maybe have the URL that was hyperlinked. But if every link on the site has a perfect keyword in it, pointing to the most perfect page on the other site, it's just not normal. So we're going to look at those sites and see what they're doing. And they've gotten really advanced. That's part of the whole Penguin update back in 2011 and forward. And it's been getting smarter and smarter.
Very interesting. I mean, just philosophically, Adam, does it bother you as it does me that Google gets to be the arbiter of who gets seen and who doesn't on the internet? I mean, that just, wow, that's a lot of power. And how do you know they're going to be fair?
Well, it's interesting. That's a pain point for me as well. Years ago, I worked with a very large hotel chain, one of the largest in the world, and this is back in maybe 2008, and we had a great idea for them on how they could build links and do it easily. We said, you should create a reservation widget where people can go to your site and they can check to see if you have any availabilities in your rooms over this period of time. But if they're a travel blogger or whatever, they can copy the code, your widget code, embed it on their web page, and allow people to, if you have Mike's travel blog, people can go to Mike's travel blog, use your widget, and see if there are openings at your hotel room. Oh, and by the way, why don't you put a link in the widget pointing back to your website that has your hotel name or hotel reservations, something like that. And so we said it doesn't violate Google's guidelines because it's someone who wants to put the link on their site or the widget on their site because it's a value add, it's a tool, it's helpful to their users. And, you're not buying the link, you're not paying for it. So it passed the sniff test. And then Google came out maybe a few months ago and said, hey, this is no longer fair. You guys shouldn't be including links in your widgets anymore. And essentially they're telling people how to build their websites. Like, you can't build your website this way anymore. You can't build your tools this way. And it's like, come on, Google, really? Like, we get the fact that you don't want us buying links, that you don't want us doing all these things that are sort of unnaturally making us look better than we should. But if people want to implement the stuff on their own sites because it's quality, why are you holding that against us? So Google likes to change the rules every once in a while when it's not really warranted, and especially when they start to see that their bottom line from ad revenue is suffering. Let's figure out a way to get to hurt folks who are trying to rank organically and move it more towards an ad spend. And there's some of that goes on too. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating that Google has the keys and can do so many things. I mean, it is their site and it is free.
Yeah, if you ask me, the Department of Justice needs to break Google up. It's just too big. It's just too powerful. And I did a show with the author of a book called Search and Destroy, which was about the evils of Google. And I just think they have way too much power. I mean, as much as I like their products, and I think they've done a great job in many ways of cleaning up the internet. I mean, I remember the old internet back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Google really got a foothold and changed everything. And it was junky, I'll be the first to admit. But with that comes a price of possibly having way too much power. And I think we're there. So just a true philosophical note, but we don't.
No, it's true.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think though marketers have given them a lot of power, because for a long time that was a lot of 90% of a company's strategy was Google, and so we've learned to become so reliant on Google and the traffic that it provides that anytime they make a major change that we're not expecting, it really messes us up. So I think if anything, this lesson teaches us to really diversify our marketing our marketing tactics. So don't just let Google be your sole driver of traffic. You got to use email marketing and display ads and retargeting and all those other things that make up a part of your digital marketing. So that way, if something happens with Google, it doesn't really mess you up too bad.
Well, good advice there. Good advice to diversify, not have all your eggs in the Google basket, for sure. What else do you want people to know? Just any great tips in general, any great ideas in general, maybe what's even coming down the road?
Sure. Well, that's a really great question. In fact, Google, Bing, and Yahoo are quickly, more so Google, moving towards semantic search. And so they're really trying to understand what they say, things, not strings. For example, if you're Googling the term mug, are you looking for a cup? Are you looking for a face? Are you looking for a mug shot, right? So what are you looking for? And so Google's better trying to understand the intent of the query as well as the just the keyword that's being searched too. They're also getting better at conversational search. So they know more people are searching using their voice, whether it be through the desktop application or through their mobile phones. So they're trying to do a better job at addressing voice queries. We know that people search differently when they're typing as opposed to speaking. So that's moving very quickly. That's what the whole Hummingbird update a couple of months ago was. And then the other piece of it is Google's looking into predictive search, meaning they want to answer your questions before you even ask it. So if you haven't heard of Google Now, you should definitely Google it. If you have an Android phone, you probably get some cards that pop up when you're on your way home that tell you how bad the traffic is. Maybe you get some weather pop-ups, or maybe if you've been using your Google Wallet, you get a notification that it's been a month since you've bought your dog food last or something. So Google's getting better at expecting what you'll be searching for or needing and providing those answers to you beforehand. So
and look at the scariness of that will follow. That's basically the pre-crime division in Minority Report.
It really, I mean, it really is Orwellian, but they have so much access to our data that it's easy for them to do all of this.
Yeah, and it's incredibly convenient. So we like it and we hate it at the same time. It's very interesting. I haven't seen Google Wallet get any sort of a foothold. I mean, is that really out there? Are people really using this?
I think some people are. I'm always amazed, when I go into a Starbucks and I see someone hand the cashier their phone, and and they swipe it up against. I just don't feel. I tried Google Wallet, I think, for a day, and I said I don't want Google knowing what I'm doing with my money. Like, they don't need to know my shopping behavior. So, but the younger generation, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of adoption rate, but the younger generation is definitely a lot more trusting in technology, I think, than we are. So who knows? But it's really hard to say. But for those who use it, Google is definitely trying to use that data to help sell you more and give that data to advertisers to help.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, give out your website and tell people where they can find you.
Sure, absolutely. You can find, if you're looking for, if you're a small business and you're looking for small business information, you can check out Deluxe.com. If you're looking for great SEO and search and related content and social media, check out my website at adamdince.com. There's a contact page there if you feel like reaching out. And yeah, that's probably follow me on Twitter at Adam Dince. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of me for sure.
Fantastic. Well, Adam Dince, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure being with you.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.